I don't know if you've ever asked yourself, why did they have to replace Judas Iscariot? Why 12? What's the importance? You would think, okay, he betrayed the Lord, and therefore, we'll go with 11. But no, it was very symbolic. You see, there were 12 tribes in the nation of Israel. And now what the Lord was doing was continuing this message of the Messiah, and therefore the number 12 was significant. So they chose this man, Matthias. It's interesting how they went about doing it. They had narrowed, and there must have been, I guess, 100, maybe thousands of disciples. And they narrowed it down to 2, Justus, who we know very little about, and Matthias. And what they did is they went into prayer, and then they had to figure out, who do we choose? And it's interesting that they cast lots. I think it was the Romans that gave them how to do it. I don't know if they used dice or they used bones or whatever it was. But this is how they found Matthias to be the right one. Part of it was their faith. They trusted these lots. And this is where they maybe figured it out with the Lord. This was what he decided, that this was how they would decide Matthias and who he would become, that 12th apostle. But he's chosen. Later on, he was going to give his life for the Lord, as all of the apostles probably did. And this is where he was chosen for some reason. There might be another question we might want to ask. Why Matthias? But I think we can look at all the apostles. Why were certain men that were chosen to be apostles? And I think the Lord, when he chose these men, chose each one of them. Matthias was chosen also. There must have been a reason where the Lord was working on that. I think each one of these apostles had a personality, a character, something in which the Lord saw something in them. Take, for example, Matthew, a tax collector. Why choose a tax collector? Well, there were probably a lot of tax collectors, and the Romans were notorious for their taxes, that Matthew would be the one that he would reach out to tax collectors. I think we might not know too much about each of those apostles, but I'm sure that they were chosen for a specific reason. They were going to reach people that no one else could reach. The idea of being chosen, this is what Jesus talks about here. I have chosen you. I chose you so that you would experience my joy. You would experience the privilege of being one of my friends. You'll be given the privilege to be able to follow Jesus Christ. Chosen. The Lord picked them. It's the same with us. The Lord has chosen you. You might want to ask yourself, why me? And yet you're a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ, and the Lord has chosen you. I think each one of us here have our own story. Why are you a Catholic? You probably have to take a good look at your life. I was asked when I was studying spiritual direction to write my spiritual autobiography. What's a spiritual autobiography? You go back as far back as you can to remember your autobiography. What happened to you? What events? What experiences? What people had an influence on you? And you go back and take a look at that, but you're not doing it for material reasons. You're doing it for spiritual reasons. How was the Lord working in your life. In other words, that had not happened to you, if you had not had that experience, you not had that thing happening to you, if you hadn't met a certain person, you would not be here this afternoon. Think about that. That's why each one of us, and sometimes I wish we could have each of you come up here and tell us, how did you get here? How did the Lord work on you? How do you enjoy his friendship now, his joy? I think for many of us it'd be a very interesting story that we tell. Some of us may have drifted away from the Lord when we were maybe younger, because of education, work, whatever. Some of us may have been what we call a cradle Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, by the way. Maybe that's why I'm now a friar priest. But the thing is that when I look back at my life, I could see how the Lord was working. Maybe I wasn't aware of that time, but now when I look back at it, I can understand that throughout my life, and I have to go back to my family, for example, that this is why I am here today, why I am witnessing for Jesus Christ. This is something, that maybe to take a look at. I think we should be very grateful what had happened in our lives and how the Lord had worked on us. To think about that you have been chosen. In other words, whatever reason, the Lord picked you. And now you enjoy a friendship with him. You enjoy a joy which we all need. But also there is a responsibility with this. What Jesus said here, it was not I who chose you, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. The command that I have is love one another. That's the fruit. Your actions, your words that are loving. And this is what we're asked to do, to spread that fruit, those things where we can be an effect on someone else. That idea, maybe there was a human being in your life that said something to you, did something for you, and it caused your conversion, you seeking out the Lord. Do you realize that you could be one of those people where you may touch someone as you love them? You may do something with them, you may say something to them, which is going to turn their life around. This is what we are called to do. We love one another because Jesus loves us. And if you're a loving person, it's very hard not to love. In other words, we got to reach out to one another, be kind to one another. We're asked to love one another. Look around at yourself and the people here in this chapel. Guess what? You're called to love them. You might not know who they are. Maybe you don't like them. Maybe you don't like the way they look. But guess what? Nothing to do with liking them, but we're called to love them. This is what we are asked to do because we have been chosen by Jesus Christ to be his disciple, his friend. We're asked to spread that with one another. I love you, and therefore I call upon you to love one another.